You know that feeling, right? A sudden gust of cold air hits your bare arms. Or maybe it's the climax of an epic movie, the swell of a powerful orchestra, or even a moment of just intense fear. All of a sudden, the tiny hairs on your skin stand on end, and your skin prickles into this field of tiny bumps. It's something we've all experienced, but have you ever really stopped to wonder what is actually going on?
I mean, it's a great question, isn't it? The triggers seem so completely different. You've got a physical sensation like cold, a primal emotion like fear, and then this complex, beautiful experience like music. And yet, the body reacts in the exact same way every single time. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of your body's strangest, oldest, and, believe it or not, most surprisingly complex reflexes. Okay, let's dive into the science of it. First things first, this whole phenomenon has a proper name. While we all call them goosebumps, or maybe goose pimples, depending on where you're from, the scientific community knows it as piloerection. It actually comes from the Latin words pilus, for hair, and erectio, for, being erect. And that's our first clue that this is a deeply biological process.
So to really understand why this happens, we've got to first understand what is happening under the surface. So let's start with part one of our deep dive, the anatomy of a goosebump. What's the microscopic machinery that springs into action every time you get the chills?
Okay, meet the tiny hero of our story, the erector pili. These are microscopic smooth muscles, and you have one attached to pretty much every single hair follicle on your body. Think about that. Millions of these little motors scattered all over your skin. And because they're smooth muscle, you have absolutely no conscious control over them. You can't just decide to get goosebumps. It's a completely involuntary reflex.
So what sets them off? Well, it's this incredible lightning-fast chain reaction. It all starts with a trigger, cold, fear, whatever it is. Your brain senses it, and bam, it activates your sympathetic nervous system. Now, this is your body's fight-or-flight command center. That system releases a jolt of the stress hormone adrenaline, which floods your body and basically shouts the order to all those tiny erector pili muscles to contract, all at once. And as they tighten up, they pull the hair follicles straight up. And in doing so, they pull the skin around the base upwards, creating that little bump we all know as a goosebump. It's an ancient, automatic reflex, totally hardwired into our biology.
So, we've got the mechanics down, but that just raises an even bigger question. Why does this system even exist? I mean, what's the point? For that, we need to hop in our evolutionary time machine and travel way, way back. Let's look at section 2. This is a prehistoric reflex, an echo from our deep evolutionary past.
So try to picture our early human ancestors. They were covered in a much, much denser coat of hair than we are today. And for them, piloerection wasn't just some weird sensation, it was a life-saving feature. It had two major benefits that for us, modern, less hairy humans, have been almost entirely lost to time.
And you can see the difference perfectly right here. First up, let's talk about insulation. When our ancestors' hair stood on end, it created this fluffy layer that trapped air close to the skin. That trapped air would hold in their body heat, acting like a natural, built-in puffy jacket against the cold. With our sparse body hair today, well, we still get the goosebumps, but the insulating effect is pretty much zero. Now for benefit number 2, intimidation. Think of a scared cat arching its back or a porcupine raising its quills. By making all their hair stand up, they instantly look bigger, fluffier, and way more threatening to a predator. Our ancestors used the exact same trick. Today, a predator would probably not be very impressed. So the key takeaway here is that goosebumps are what biologists call a vestigial reflex, basically an evolutionary hangover that no longer serves its original purpose.
Okay, but this is where the story takes a really fascinating turn. We've explained the reflex for cold and fear, the original evolutionary triggers. But what about the chills you get from a beautiful piece of music or a really moving scene in a movie? This is where that ancient reflex gets hijacked by our modern complex brains. Welcome to our next section, chills, thrills, and frisson.
I mean, we've all felt it, right? That sudden, shivery wave that just washes over you during a dramatic crescendo or an emotionally charged moment. It feels profound, but there's no physical threat. You're not cold. So what in the world is your body reacting to? Well, it turns out your brain is interpreting that powerful emotional stimulus in the same way it would interpret a sudden shock, and it's triggering the exact same ancient fight-or-flight response.
And science has a beautiful name for this specific experience, frisson. It's a French word that literally means to shiver, and it perfectly captures these so-called aesthetic chills. It's a physiological reaction to something you find deeply moving or beautiful. It is, quite literally, your body physically reacting to art. And the reason why is rooted deep in your brain's reward pathways.
Now check this out. Here's a fascinating discovery that helps explain why some of us are more prone to frisson than others. A 2016 study found a real physical difference in the brains of people who regularly experience it. As it says here, they literally have more neural connections, more wiring you could say, between the part of their brain that processes sound and the parts that handle emotion. This basically lets the two areas communicate more efficiently, leading to a much more intense emotional and physical reaction to music.
And what makes that reaction so intensely pleasurable? Well, it's a release of dopamine in the brain, the same chemical involved in things like eating food you love or falling in love. It's a reward so powerful that some researchers have adopted a pretty memorable nickname for it, a skin orgasm. It sounds a little provocative for sure, but it really highlights just how powerful the connection between our mind, our emotions, and this ancient physical reflex can be.
So, we have this prehistoric survival tool that's been repurposed by our brains for appreciating art. And you'd think that's where the story ends, right? Well, not quite. This supposedly useless reflex is actually staging a comeback in some really unexpected ways. Our final section is called More Than a Feeling, where we'll look at the surprising modern roles of goosebumps.
And this is where it gets really surprising. Just look at these other rules. First, piloerection is a classic observable sign of opioid withdrawal, something doctors actively look for. Second, in some very rare neurological cases, getting goosebumps can actually be part of a seizure, a phenomenon linked to the temporal lobe of the brain. And third, and this one is maybe the most exciting, recent research suggests this very reflex might hold a key to regenerating hair itself.
And speaking of opioid withdrawal, this brings us to a phrase you've definitely heard before. The term going cold turkey isn't just some random expression. It's widely believed to have originated from the very physical symptoms of abrupt withdrawal. The combination of cold, clammy sweats and the persistent goosebumps makes a person's skin look a lot like that of a refrigerated, plucked turkey. It's a pretty vivid piece of language, rooted directly in piloerection.
Okay, let's circle back to that hair growth point, because this is a potential game changer. A 2020 study published in the journal Cell took a super close look at the whole goosebump mechanism. And they discovered that the very same nerves that trigger those little muscles are also wrapped around hair follicle stem cells. What they found was that during prolonged cold, these nerves don't just cause goosebumps, they also signal the stem cells to activate and grow new hair. The goosebump is the short-term fix for cold, but the sustained nerve activity is the body's long-term plan to grow a warmer coat. This link could be the key to future treatments for baldness and other hair loss conditions.
So, what started as a simple look into a weird little bodily quirk has taken us on this incredible journey, from our prehistoric past, through the heights of artistic expression, and all the way into the future of regenerative medicine. This supposedly useless evolutionary hangover turns out to be deeply connected to our survival, our emotions, and even our potential for healing. Which really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If a simple goosebump holds this many secrets, what else is your body doing right now, completely without you knowing?